I'm here with Dr. John Hodges, licensed psychologist here in the Pensacola area. And Dr. Hodges, as I work with a lot of teenagers, they go through a lot of stress. And the parents come to me and they say, what can my student do to handle this stress? Are there any coping mechanisms or anything that you would suggest in dealing with stress?
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is define stress. I hear everybody is stressed out, but when I ask them to give me a definition of stress, no one can tell me what it really means. So people are going around saying, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. Well, if I tell myself I'm stressed 20 times in a day, how am I going to feel at the end of the day? So recognition is important, but once you recognize it, then you have a responsibility to yourself to do something about it. Looking at what's the source of the stress, what are the skills that I lack in not handling it, and oftentimes it's unrealistic expectations, especially in teenagers. We as parents have sold our kids this notion that they're wonderful, they're perfect, they're great, but in fact they're sinners. Just like I am, you are, everyone is, and recognizing that we're not perfect. And we sort of set kids up for a lot of stress by expecting them to be perfect, to be the smartest student, the best athlete, the best musician, and so forth. But not every student is gifted that way. Each student is going to have their own gift. And the most important thing parents can do for their kids is introduce them to a relationship with Jesus Christ. From there, they're going to recognize what they're good at, and their limitations are not going to seem overwhelming. The definition of stress that I really like is when you perceive the demand to be greater than your ability to handle it. What we've turned it into is when I have demands that I don't like. And so if I don't like something, then I have this expectation, well, everything should be the way I want it. I jokingly tell parents, it is your responsibility as a good parent to introduce misery into your child's life. Because they're going to have challenges and difficulties in their life, and if they don't learn how to deal with disappointment, with problems, with conflict, with people not liking them, with things being said about them, then they're going to be overwhelmed in life. Remember, the definition is when I perceive the demand to be greater than my ability to handle it. So the idea of what are my coping skills? All of us have demands in our lives. But how do you cope with it? I see some people who are dealing with cancers, with past abuse, with all kinds of things, and they cope with it. I see other people who get a hole in their sock and it's the end of the day. And so coping skills is really important, and developing coping skills rather than the avoidance of difficulties. If we cope with things, then we're going to have a lot less stress in our life because we're going to make better decisions. We won't put ourselves into difficult situations. So much of drugs, alcohol, pornography, those things are efforts to escape uncomfortable feelings, which only adds to people's stress and difficulties. So the real key to it is to understand, have realistic expectations. I'm going to have difficult times in my life. I'm going to have challenging tests in my life. I'm going to have peers who aren't going to like me. But believing I can deal with that and I can cope with that, and what's the best way to do that is to have a relationship with Christ and understand the significance of that in your life.